Welcome back to From Trash to Treasure, where ordinary people like you and me take unwanted items that would otherwise end up in the landfill and turn them into something new and beautiful for their home. Today I'm going to take an old broken ladder and transform it into a one-of-a-kind ladder bookshelf. This will be my first time working with a ladder, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I am sure it'll be fine. Just kidding. Let's get started. If you are new here, hi, I'm a DIY mom who loves giving new life to old discarded furniture. Please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel. Alright, let's take a look at what I'm working with today. This ladder was given to me by a friend, and it looks pretty bad. There's several slats missing, and there's also some damage on the side here and down at the bottom. And these rungs are very uneven. They're not level. So before I can do anything else, I need to make a game plan and see what I'm going to do to fix this. I had some extra wood lying around from previous projects, so I'm going to use that to replace the missing slats, and then I'll just sand everything down, paint it, and then I should have a ladder bookshelf. Perfect. So the first thing I need to do is remove the paint. Now, I have never painted over wood before, so I'm not sure if this paint is going to come off easily or not. Well, after trying a little paint scraper and some sandpaper, I realized that scraping the paint off wasn't going to work because it was painted over bare wood, and I didn't want to sand all the way down to the original finish. Instead, I got out my trusty heat gun and started heating up the paint. Once the paint started getting soft, I wiped it off with a rag, and I did this all over the ladder. I think that was much easier than I thought it was going to be. Now that the ladder is completely clean, it's time to replace those missing slats. I measured each section where the slat was missing and cut a new piece to size. The original pieces were 3/4 of an inch thick, while the new pieces that I cut were only 1/2 inch thick. But you know what? I'm sure it's going to turn out fine. After I put all the new slats in place, I used a nail gun to secure them to the ladder. Next, I caulked all the cracks and crevices and let it dry. After the glue dried, I drilled pilot holes and then screwed the slats to the side rails. Then I simply repeated the process on the other side of the ladder. I did notice when I was drilling the pilot holes that there was a metal bar running through the center of the ladder. I'm not sure what that's there for, but I guess it's part of the structure. So I had to drill my holes slightly bigger to accommodate the metal bar. I also noticed that the inside of the ladder was hollow. So after I secured the new slats to the sides of the ladder, I filled the center with some sawdust and wood glue just to add some support. Then I clamped everything together to let the glue dry. While the glue was drying, I stained the rungs. I used a foam brush to apply the stain, and then I wiped off the excess. When I first applied the stain, it looked great, but once it dried, it looked horrible. It made the wood look orange, and it didn't darken like I thought it would. But you know what? I learned a valuable lesson today. Always test your stain on a scrap piece of wood first. I definitely will never make that mistake again. Since the stain didn't turn out how I wanted it to, I decided to paint the ladder instead. So I wiped it down with a damp cloth to remove the stain. Then I applied a coat of primer, let it dry, and then 2 coats of chalk paint. To be honest, painting this ladder was a lot of fun. The kids were even helping me out. This is my 4-year-old. She was my official paint inspector. She did a great job. Once the paint was dry, I added some dark wax to give it a little character and to match the color of the original finish on the side rails. The wax added just enough color to give it the look I was going for. It almost looks like it matches perfectly. The next day I came out to take a look at my ladder bookshelf, and I noticed that the paint and the wax had darkened overnight. I think it looks even better now. I love how it turned out. It looks so aged and so full of character. So now it's time to attach the ladder to the wall. I found these awesome brackets online that match the ladder perfectly. They were super easy to install. All I had to do was drill 3 holes and then screw them into the wall. Then I set the ladder on top of the brackets and tightened the screws to secure it in place. Now it's time to style the shelves. I knew I wanted to go with a rustic ladder shelf vibe, so I gathered up some of my favorite rustic accessories. I used some vintage books to fill up the bottom shelf. I absolutely love the way they turned out. On the top shelf, I placed some oversized white pumpkins. I don't know about you guys, but I love me some oversized faux pumpkins. I mean, just look at these. They're huge. I got these last year at Hobby Lobby, but they have new ones every year, so you can always find something different. I also added a few natural elements like pine cones and some branches. I think it turned out perfect. Overall, I absolutely love how this ladder turned out. Who knew that such a simple project could look so good? I've been seeing ladder bookshelves like this all over Pinterest for years now, and I finally decided to give it a try. I'm so glad I did because it turned out exactly how I envisioned it in my head. I also love how the ladder looks against this bright yellow wall. I think it's a great combination. Let us take a quick reminder look at where this ladder started out, and here's the final result. Isn't it amazing how just a little paint and a few accessories can completely change the look of a space? I hope this video has inspired you to think outside the box when it comes to decorating your home. Don't be afraid to experiment with different pieces of furniture to create a look that is uniquely yours. I styled this ladder bookshelf to fit in perfectly with the rest of my living room. I shared the entire living room makeover on my main channel. Go check it out. I'm absolutely in love with this ladder bookshelf. It's so versatile and it can be used in so many different ways. You could use it as a towel rack in your bathroom or an ironing center. You could also use it in your kitchen to hold pots and pans or as a plant stand. The possibilities are really endless. If you're looking for a fun and unique piece of furniture to add to your home, I highly recommend checking out a ladder bookshelf. Not only is it super affordable, but it's also a great way to reduce waste and give new life to an old piece of furniture. Plus, it's just so much fun to style and decorate. You really can't go wrong. And hey, if you're feeling crafty, why not try making your own ladder bookshelf? It's a super easy project that even a beginner dyer like myself can do. And the best part is you can customize it to fit your style and your budget. Thank you so much for joining me on another exciting episode of From Trash to Treasure. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you think. I love reading your comments and I try to reply to as many as I can. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would love to have you here. I share D's, home decor, and organization tips. That's it for today, my friends. Till next time, happy treasure hunting. Bye. Welcome back to From Trash to Treasure, where ordinary items are transformed into extraordinary works of art. Today, we have an old window that looks like it came from a haunted house. Let's change that. I can just see the potential in this old window. All it needs is a little TLC and some paint. But before we paint, we gotta clean. So I brought it out back and hosed it off. Then I let it dry before bringing it in. This old window was donated by my friend Karen. She took it out of her garage and thought it would be perfect for me to use on From Trash to Treasure. It was originally installed in her home when it was built in 1976, and it was time for a replacement. I think this window would look amazing, painted and displayed with some family photos in it. But to get there, we gotta do some work. I took the window to the work table and started to sand it down with some 220 grit sandpaper. The glass was really dirty, and I wanted to get it nice and clean before painting it. Now it's ready for paint. I applied painter's tape to the edges of the window, and then I painted the inside black. Took 2 coats to get full coverage, and I used a small angled brush to get into all of the nooks and crannies. Once it was completely dry, I removed the painter's tape. The window was looking so good. I wanted to add some dimension to the window by painting the glass panes. But before I did, I cut out some cardboard to use as a stencil. I drew around the window using a marker, then I cut along the lines to make the stencils. I applied painter's tape to the window, securing the cardboard in place. Then I brushed on some white paint. I removed the cardboard and tape and added another coat of white paint to the glass. This is turning out so good. I sanded the edges of the glass again to make them shiny. Then I applied wood filler to all of the cracks and crevices. I spread it out using a putty knife and let it dry. Now it's time to sand again. This time I'm using 120 grit sandpaper. I sanded until the surface was smooth and even. I wiped it off with a damp cloth and let it dry before applying the first coat of paint. The paint I'm using today is a leftover sample from Home Depot. You never know what colors you're going to end up with when you do this, but it's exciting to find out. I brushed on the first coat of paint and let it dry before adding the second coat. For the second coat, I decided to thin the paint with some water. I put about ½ inch of water in a paint tray and mixed it in. Then I applied it to the window. I absolutely love how it's turning out. It almost looks like stained glass. Next, I took the window to the spray paint booth and shot it with some gloss varnish. This is going to protect the paint job and make it look even better. I removed the window from the booth and set it on the work table. Then I removed the hardware using a pair of pliers. I went over the paint job one last time to touch up any spots that needed it, then I let it dry before putting the hardware back on. To finish it off, I removed the protective film on the glass, and now our window makeover is complete. This window looks so amazing. Now it's ready to be transformed into a wall frame. To make the wall frame, I cut some 1x4 boards to the size of the window using a miter saw. I sanded the edges with 120 grit sandpaper to make them smooth. Then I stained them with some walnut wood stain and a foam brush. Once they were dry, I applied a coat of polyurethane. I let it dry before adding the second coat. Then I removed it from the clamp and sanded it with 220 grit sandpaper. To finish it off, I applied some wax and buffed it with a clean cloth. It looks so good. Put the window in the center of the frame, making sure it was straight. Then I applied some construction adhesive around the edges. I clamped the frame to the window to keep it in place while the adhesive dried. Once it was dry, I drilled pilot holes and screwed the frame to the window using a screwdriver. I repeated this on the other side and our window frame was complete. Now it's time to fill it with some photos. I printed out some old photos of my family and friends, then I matted them to make them look nicer. Next, I applied some double-sided tape to the back of the mats. Then I stuck the photos to the glass. This looks so good. I just love how this turned out. What do you think? If you love this idea, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you'd like to see more DIY content, check out the playlist DIY to make your life easier. There's something for everyone. And don't forget to leave a thumbs up, because it really helps out the channel. Before we move on to our next project, I want to show you what my friend Karen did with her window. She put up wallpaper on the wall behind it and decorated the top with some plants. She hung some string lights above it, and the whole thing looks amazing. Karen also made a fun discovery while taking out the old window. Look at this. It's a time capsule from 1976. I love that. It's time for our next project, and this one is a real doozy. It's a lamp that's seen better days. This Tiffany-style table lamp was given to me by my friend Greg. It was his grandmother's, and it needs a little TLC. Not only does it need a new shade, but the paint is chipping off the base. Let's fix that. First, I took the shade off the lamp, and I removed the harp and finial. Next, I unplugged the lamp and removed the socket. To remove the paint from the base, I applied some Goo Gone and a plastic scraper. Then I wiped off the surface with a damp cloth. The base looked so much better without the paint. To get it ready to paint, I sanded it with 220 grit sandpaper. Then I cleaned it with a damp cloth. Next, I applied some primer. This is going to help the paint adhere to the surface better. Once the primer was dry, I painted it with some leftover chalk paint. I brushed on the first coat and let it dry. Then I added the second coat. It took 2 coats to get full coverage. While the paint was drying, I made some simple curtains for the lampshade. I cut some fabric to the size of the shade, leaving a little extra to spare. I folded over the edges and stapled them in place. To finish it off, I glued some ribbon to the top. Now it's time to put it all back together. I plugged in the cord and installed the socket. Then I put the harp and finial back on. Next, I put the shade on the lamp. This lamp looks so amazing. I love how the color turned out. What do you think? And here's a before and after to see the full transformation. This lamp was certainly worth saving. It looks so good. If you love this idea, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. If you'd like to see more DIY content, check out the playlist DIY to make your life easier. There's something for everyone. And don't forget to leave a thumbs up because it really helps out the channel. That's it for today. Till next time, happy creating.